So as you're probably expecting, we will start by dissing the year 2020, right? It's been a washout year, and just when you thought it couldn't get worse, it did, right? But here we are, and thanks to the wonderful folks at SaaS Insider, we've been able to network, we've been able to talk to a bunch of people, we've been able to hear from some of the behemoths of the SaaS industry. So thank you, SaaS Insider. Thank you, Gautam, for organizing this.
It's a pleasure.
With that out of the way, let's look at some of the good things that came out of 2020, right? So with the majority of the world's workforce working from home, right, the mobile app adoption, mobile engagement has skyrocketed. Our lives have been appified like never before, right? You see platforms like AirMeet or Zoom grow stratospherically, just a couple of 1,000 percentage points in increase. Disney Plus achieved in 5 months what it took Netflix for achieving in 7 years. EdTech as a space, which was already blazing fast in growth, has also started growing even faster. And we've started now realizing how poorly paid our primary school teachers are, right? But my favorite takeaway from all of this is Indian husbands have discovered housework. So it's not an entirely washout, yeah? But yeah, it's been a fantastic year as far as growth for mobile goes, engagement goes. But the question that we need to ask is, what do we do with this growth, right? Was 2020 an aberration? It certainly was. Is the growth in the mobile engagement an aberration? Maybe, maybe not. If it's not, then how do you engage this massive scale that you've gathered? How do you keep these people retained? And that's what I'm going to cover up about today, right? We'll talk about that. So the thing to realize here is that retention is the real lever to growth now, and there's a massive change in the way industries are functioning. Right, they're realizing that if you can focus on the customer base that you have, then you have a greater chance of adding to a long-term sustainability. Your long-term revenues are more predictable if you can do that. As you know, retention is the ability of a business to hold on to its customers so that they keep coming back to your business for a transaction or a subscription rather than going to your competition, right? So yeah, it is an important lever. And why businesses are realizing that this is an important lever is because of the leaky bucket problem, right? While specific stats may vary, on an average, an app will lose 90% of its users in the first 3 months. In some cases, that's even more drastic, right? With apps losing 80 to 85% of its user base in the first 7 days or the first 30 days since install. So if you're a business who's spending on acquiring users across different channels, right? Ad networks or publishing platforms or whatever, then you really need to plug this leaky bucket before you start throwing more money and at acquiring users. So let's quickly see how and why I say that it's important to plug this leaky bucket. This is a simple slide that I've we've built to kind of illustrate the benefits of building retention early on in the state, right? Assume that this is an organization which has about 10,000 users to begin with. They have a retention rate of 5%. They're adding about 1,000 users every month, and each of these users is spending about $100, give or take, per month on either subscription or transaction or whatever, right? So if this company continues to manage a retention rate of 5%, which essentially means that they're losing 95% of their customer base, if they continue to maintain a retention rate of 5% by the end of 60 months, they're only they only made about $20,000 in business, right? But if this company starts to improve its retention metrics by even 1% or 2%, right, or as low as 5% over a period of these 3, 4, 5 years, then the growth in revenue, the growth in the sustainability has about an impact of 15 to 20 times what they would have otherwise made, right? So it's quite simple to see why we're talking retention, why we're focusing on retention, and what it brings to the table, right? Sorry, excuse me about that. And this really is the difference between winning and losing, right? Companies that kind of realize retention is important early on are the winners, and those who don't kind of lag. So, INC, it's a popular publication which covers small and medium businesses. They say that if if you retain an existing user, right, the possibility is that they will contribute to 67% more of a revenue from a repeat purchase as compared to a new customer. HBR, Harvard Business Review, says that now it's 25 times more expensive to acquire a new user as compared to retaining your existing one. And the reason is very simple, right? People who know your brand, people who are aware of your brand, it's easier to keep them engaged, easier to act based on their behavior rather than just throwing money in familiarizing your brand with an unknown, right? Somebody who you need to acquire. And the Bain and Company says that about 75% of increase in profit is what you can expect by just increasing retention by 5%. Now, different think tanks have different numbers, but the underlying theme remains that retention remains super important, super critical, and just by a few percentage points improvement, you can actually substantially contribute to your top line. And this is not a problem for just digital first or mobile first companies. You look at offline business, you look at large banks, you look at large insurers. They're also realizing that the return on investment from retaining your users is much higher than going after new users. New users is important. I'm not saying it's not, but at the same time, you need to keep a very sharp focus, laser focus on retaining your users. Look at ed tech, look at media entertainment, look at finance. All these industries are hyper focused on keeping their existing customer base engaged, keeping them happy, communicating with them in a way that they like. If you look at if you look at some of the biggest names in the industry, right, they're built on retention, right? So if you look at the Amazon Prime membership, the first year membership retention is about 93%. So 93% people are actually renewing their Prime memberships. The number goes up to 98% for the second year, just for Prime. Netflix, which actually competes with you for your sleep, and they claim that has a retention rate of 91%. Starbucks, we all like Starbucks. We all love coffee from Starbucks. The average customer lifespan for Starbucks, for the average customer, is about 20 years. So look at these numbers and let them sink in, right? So you see, you could argue that these are large organizations, they're ubiquitous, so that's why they have the resources to focus on retention. But my rationale is simple, that if you don't focus on retention, you can't become as big as they did. Right? All right, so what does it take to actually build a retention strategy or an engagement strategy that works, right? So we've been around for about 7 or 8 years now, and we've worked with thousands of apps across the world, across different lines of businesses. What we've realized is that there are 3 broad pillars that you need to build your customer engagement and retention strategies on. So let's look at those. So the first is, you've got to break down customer data silos, right? Customer data silos in an organization, if they're spread across the organization, then building an effective retention strategy becomes very, very difficult. It's actually a hindrance, right? And some of the most common silos that we come across are, for example, your analytics platform is different from your marketing automation platform, for instance, right? So while you're great at working on the analytics platform, you know how to get out data, you're great at the marketing automation part, you know how to strategize campaigns, but you've got to export that data from the analytics platform to build a campaign in the marketing automation. And the minute you export that data, it's already stale, right? So you've got a user who's just qualified for the segment in the last second or the next second after you did an export. So you've missed the real-time impact, right? The time value of the insight goes down. It's all in good, but having different systems across the organization kind of makes it very difficult to have a handle, a complete control on the user context, the user behavior, and so on and so forth, right? The other thing we've seen is that as enterprises, as organizations mature, as they grow, they start adding different channels for engagement. Right? For example, email is the oldest and it's the legacy platform of engagement. So you've got maybe an email sys there. Then SMS came along, so you built a system for SMS, and then you got push notifications. So you added another set of tools for push notification. But what happened gradually is that eventually you've built a patchwork of engagement tools and channels, and you also have independent teams that are running this. So while an email team is running the email campaigns, the push notification team is running the push campaigns, the poor user ends up getting often conflicting messages. And we've seen this, right? So he doesn't know which one to believe in. And I'm sure, right, often you have gotten SMSs from your existing provider offering you a product or a service that you really don't care about, right? And say, yes, if you do, right? I'm not the only one here. And the other thing is, we do a lot of independent A/B testing, and which is a important critical part of any product ecosystem. You do these testings to figure out what works, what doesn't work. But the metrics from these kind of testing is, it's very shallow. What happens is that you change the color of a button, for instance, to figure out which has a greater impact. Does the red button work better? Does the blue button work better? Which one works better? But how do you tie these results to retention 6 months down the line? Or how do you figure out whether the retention rates today are because of an A/B test that we did 6 months earlier? So it's very difficult to break down, tie these or correlate this. And hence, it's the first step that you need to actually do is, break down these silos so that everybody has a complete view of what the customer is doing. There is context attached to it, and the time value of insight, the sanctity of the time value of insight gets maintained. The second thing is about metrics that we track, right? So we work with about 8,000 odd apps across the world, right? And we've seen that there are 3 core metrics that make a difference, that are important to be tracked, right? One is your retention rate. Now, different businesses have different retention rates. Some track it on a 7 day, some track it on a month, some track it, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever. But whatever retention rate that you choose to track for your business, it's very important that you keep an hawk eye on it. It's a very important leading indicator. It will tell you if your business is in line to achieve its goals or not. And if not, then you can always take a step back and see what went wrong, or if it's working fine, you can find ways to improve it. So it's important to lock this key metric as soon as possible. The other thing to look at is conversion rates. And so different apps, different businesses have different definitions of what they consider as a conversion. So it could be from adding to a cart to checking out, or it could be converting a freemium user to a paid user. It could be the number of times you want a user to post on your platform. So whatever it is, key conversion, a typical business will have 3 to 5 important key conversion rates. And it is important to rally the entire organization around these key conversion rates. And if the entire organization has a view of this, then it makes it very easy to see whether your business is on track or not, right? This is also a leading indicator. Lifetime value, it's an important indicator, but unfortunately it's a lagging indicator, right? It's obvious and it's easy to follow that if your monthly retention rates are on track, if you're exceeding them, then the probability of a lifetime value becoming higher is greater. If your key conversion rates are on track, then the lifetime value also increases. So while this is a lagging indicator, over a period of time you come to realize that these are important metrics, and everything that you do in your business, right, it should tie back to one of these rates, right? And a simple dashboard which covers these metrics will be a good indicator to the entire organization about the health of the business, right? And what works and what's not working. And this is truly alignment. This is not that the marketing automation is working or the analytics platform is working. It's actually the overall result that we're looking at, right? And the third thing we're looking at is experimentation, right? So there's no magic wand which works across businesses or apps in the same business. What works for Netflix doesn't work for Prime. What works for Uber may not work for Lyft, and so on and so forth, because their customer bases are different, their demographics are different, their offers are different. So you've got to figure out what works for your business, and you can only find that out if you experiment often, and you learn from that experimentation, right? So broadly, 3 lessons, 3 pillars that you build on. One is eliminate customer data silos, make data as available and as near to real time as possible, align on core metrics, have the entire organization rally around these 3 core metrics, make a simple dashboard that's visible to everybody, and experiment. The more you experiment, the more you learn. It's better for the business. All right. Okay, and this is where CleverTap comes in. This is a shameless plug, but we help you analyze your user business. We bring in analytics, segmentation, and engagement on the same platform. We give you a unified view of your users, so the data is always real time, and you can actually reach out to the user at a time of their choice, at a device of their preference, the message that they care about. You capture those mobile moments, so to speak, which are small windows of opportunity where the customer is most receptive to your campaign or the message. Imagine landing in a new city and your provider sends you relevant information about what's open, what's not open, if there's a offer going on, or if there's a festival you could attend, and so on and so forth. Let's move on. Yeah. So we work with some of the biggest names in the industry. We know about Dream11, the largest, one of the largest fantasy sports or gaming players in the country. They actually improved their retention by 5 times by using advanced analytics, advanced insights into the user behavior. They were actually able to convert 70% of inactive and churned users. They were able to re-engage them. Book My Show doubled its customer engagement and improved their click-through rates by using advanced personalization in real time for push notification. Carousel, it's one of the largest customer marketplaces in Southeast Asia. They were able to increase their week 3 retention by 71%, and they improved their click-through rates by 73%, which is phenomenal by any standard, right? They use advanced personalization, they use advanced insights, and they were able to achieve these results. So this is, we're a 7-8-year-old company. We work with about 8,000 odd apps across the world. We reach millions of devices every month. We're backed by some of the biggest names in the venture capital industry, and some of these logos that you see are familiar. And we've been around in the space, so we know what we're doing. And yeah, that's all that I had from my side, right? I'm happy to connect with you on any of these platforms. I hope you stay safe, and I hope this session was valuable and not a waste of your time. Stay at home, wear a mask.
Thank you so much for the session, Ketan. Right, so